that hound dog is history. King went howling after deer.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the living room. I'm Jason Silverman, the director of the Cinematheque at the CCA, and we're really grateful to have you here. It's been such a fun time doing these programs every Tuesday and Friday. We've got another great program on Friday. Strange silent films from the history of cinema that have been scored by the Ally Orchestra, which is generally acknowledged as the greatest silent film group in the universe. In person will be Ken Winokur, the founder of Alloy. He'll be playing us some films and talking to the great Kirk Ellis, who just knows everything about the movies. I know most of you are familiar with Kirk. Tonight, we have a fantastic program that we're incredibly excited about. Oh, and I want to actually stop by thanking Amra Nash for putting all of the engineering of these programs together and choosing the great music before each one. Thanks, Amra. Tonight, we're going to be watching a film that I saw last year that, I cried, I'll admit it. A really deeply moving film about our relationship with animals and our relationship with our own health and the medical industry. It's going to be hosted by Jane Bernard, who we're very grateful to have here. Jane is a former biochemist and research scientist who studied animal health. She became a documentary photographer and photojournalist who worked around the world shooting for major magazines. She launched in Santa Fe Wagworthy Naturals, which is a boutique brand of healthy natural supplements for dogs. So she's a perfect person to host this program. If you want to ask questions, there's a Q&A button on my screen. It's at the bottom right. You can click on that and type in your question, and Jane will share it. She's going to introduce our guests, Dr. Marty Goldstein and Cindy Meal. But I just have to say to Cindy, I don't know if I've told you this yet, but I'm not positive. I'm pretty sure that the CCA would not exist without Cindy. She doesn't know this yet, but the CCA, we've always lived on the edge of the CCA. Her film Buck is the all-time box office leader at the CCA. The film came in and played forever and ever and moved a lot of people, touched a lot of hearts. There's a lot of tears in our carpet still, I think, from that run. So it's a special honor to have her here. And before we introduce Jane, I want to bring on Murad Kadar, who is from the Santa Fe Humane Society and Animal Shelter, our beloved partners. They do great work in town. We're so fortunate to have them here. Murad, could you please say hello?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for allowing us to be part of the Living Room series. This is such a great thing to do with the whole social distancing and trying to flatten the curve and keep everyone healthy. We love the Living Room series because we can still watch movies. We miss the CCA popcorn. Little Hannah loves the popcorn. But thanks for supporting the Santa Fe Animal Shelter, celebrating 80 years of saving animals. And we're still open even during this pandemic. We're here helping the injured, the abandoned, and the homeless animals. So if you want to help, it's so easy to do it. Just text the word love to 26989, and you can be a part of the Santa Fe Animal Shelter family. Hannah wants to go for a little run. But make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I have to give a shout out to Dr. Marty because I love your Power Plus powder that Hannah has all the time with her meals. So thank you, Dr. Marty.
It's a pleasure.
And I'm going to thank you, Murad. And also I want to say that the Humane Society is producing videos on a regular basis that are helping with animal training during this period, and they're great. I've been watching a few of them, even though I don't have an animal right now. And I'm going to pass it over to Jane, and thanks again to the Santa Fe Humane Society.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction, Jason. Welcome, everyone. It's really nice to go to the movies on Friday night again. You know, it's been kind of a quiet time for many of us. And I'm delighted to be here this evening and talking to Cindy and to Dr. Marty. I really enjoyed the film. Cindy's a documentary filmmaker. Her company is called Cedar Creek Productions. Did I get that correct, Cindy?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. And as Jason said, she made Buck, and wonderful and wonderfully talented documentary filmmaker. And Dr. Marty, I don't think I need to give you much of an introduction. The film is a brilliant testament to the work that you do. I really enjoyed the film. I was really moved by it and very inspired. And Cindy, I'm going to start off asking you, what inspired you to make this film, and how did you get connected to Dr. Marty?
Well, I first went to him like all of the people you see in the film. I had a dog that was dying. I had taken her to many different vets, conventional vets. She had been on antibiotics and steroids, and the vets had really said, there's nothing we can do. Your dog is not going to make it. And so somebody said, go see Dr. Marty, go see Dr. Goldstein. And I did. And he did things that seemed kind of simple, but at the same time resonated as such a truth to me. It made sense. It's like, you know, you keep doing the same things, get out of the way. Let's let the body heal itself. And so that's what we did. We sort of supported her. And within a month, she was running around like a puppy again. And she was only 6 when she was dying, and she lived 6 more years. So that right there was so profound, and it was such a, in a way, simple lesson, yet such a profound lesson, and not what I had been getting from most vets. And I thought that this is a message that it's so important for people and animals that I really, it was a passion project to bring this to the screen after Buck, because Buck was also a passion project of explaining a different way to be with horses. So that's why I made it.
It really shines through that it was a passion project. And just being a dog lover, I'm curious, what was your dog? Can you tell us really briefly what your dog was struggling with?
She was a Shar-Pei. You know, I don't know if you remember when, this is dating me, Shar-Peis were brand new to the market, and I had seen one on the cover of a magazine, and I thought, that's the cutest thing I've ever seen. I would love to have a Shar-Pei. But I didn't realize the extreme health problems they had. And there's a lot of breeds to this day that struggle with a lot of health problems, like the English Bulldog and others. So they were calling it a Shar-Pei syndrome. She would spike fevers up to 107, to where, you know, I would take her to a vet, emergency rooms, and they would put her in ice baths just to bring the fever down. I've never even heard of that, but they would put her in an ice bath.
So it wasn't a straightforward illness. It wasn't
straightforward, and they chronically put her on antibiotics and steroids, and that's all they could do for her. It was antibiotics and steroids. And, you know, we were vaccinating her through the whole process as she was fighting this. They called it the Shar-Pei syndrome because I guess vets had seen it so many times, but they didn't, it was confusing because it didn't fit your average disease. It wasn't cancer. I don't know, Marty, do you remember what it was? What did you call it?
Well, it's in a category called the fever of unknown origin, but in the Shar-Pei, it's so related to them, almost a genetic weakness to have it. So it's called the Shar-Pei syndrome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that personal story. I appreciate it. And Cindy, this is also directed to you. Why did you feel, I mean, obviously there was a very personal reason for you to make this film, and it was a passion project for you, but why did you feel it was important to tell this story?
Well, because, you know, I don't ever make a film lightly. I have worked on 8 different films, but directing a film, I feel like if I don't really know it inside out, then it's not something I can tell. And it was sort of like Buck. I had ridden in a certain way for my whole life, and then I sort of discovered a different way. So the same thing with this. I had practiced medicine, or taken myself and my children to doctors my whole life. And, we had fine results, but this was such a huge step above what we had been doing. And I really felt like it's just not that well known. I think we all do things in a certain way because we're told, and this made so much more sense to me. And also the results were so radical, and I see it over and over. We have people call us all the time. They just changed the food of their dog, and they can't believe it. They're calling our office. They're writing us letters. They're saying, this is so radically different. My dog has never looked so good. They're acting like a puppy. So it's not rocket science. It's really kind of common sense, and it's getting, as Marty always said, just get out of the way of Mother Nature and let the body heal itself. But you have to promote it with a good diet, and you have to promote it with possibly supplements. And it's a simple thing, but I don't think people know it. I don't think doctors know it because they don't teach it in school, unfortunately, as you saw at the end of the film.
Yeah, and the people that are writing these letters are these people that have seen the film and then changed as a result of seeing the film.
Yes.
So the film is having a profound effect. It's getting the message out there, which is wonderful. Dr. Marty, at the end of the film, it mentions that you're not in the practice state, your practice day to day anymore, and you're now devoting your time to educating people and veterinarians on a global level, which is really exciting to me. I imagine it's exciting for you too. What form does that take, and what does that look like for you? So how are you spending your time now?
Well, now with COVID, COVID hasn't affected me that much. I wrote a bestseller 20 years ago called Nature of Animal Healing, and I just finished a 300-page manuscript for my follow-up book. I was able to do that. The product line that was mentioned before, I have a product educational line, very, very healthy products and healthy food that I've used my 47 years of experience to develop. And promoting this film, because this film alone brings a message that is so important and does it so uniquely well that it speaks for itself, and not only to the public, but the veterinary institutions must see this film. So I'm doing a lot of that. And I was at the clinic and created the clinic almost a half a century. And it started to become frustrating for me when I remained there as a clinician, because the cases are so intense. If I was lucky, I could get to 6 or 7 cases a day. And when I saw the broad global scope, that for every one cancer patient's life that I, with my staff, could save, there's probably 5,000 that are dying from the lack of knowledge on healthcare and natural therapies. So it got to a point where I just had to, pass the baton and go out on a more global level.
So that's the next step in your journey.
It is.
And an educational series too. We're taking the 300 hours of footage and turning it into an educational series and breaking it down into groups of, whether it's cancer or food or CBD, which we didn't have time to cover in the film. And Marty's helping me do that. Well, we're cutting it, and Marty's going to watch it and weigh in.
That's really exciting. So when should we look for that, and how would we find that once it's out there?
We're hoping to have it by the end of the year. It might be ambitious, but definitely by early next year. And we already have a distributor for that. And, we did that with Buck. We did 7 clinics with Buck Brannaman, which we went back to the 300 hours of footage and cut a lot of how-to stuff. So you can't teach, as Marty said for his Cornell thing, you can't teach this in half an hour. You can't even teach it in an hour and a half, but we could give you a lot more information that we have on tape. And that's what we're working on. So there will be more coming.
That's great. I can't wait. I'm going to get on your mailing list so I can I can be posted. And Dr. Marty, how do you think this work that you've been doing, how do you think that fits into wider wellness for humans?
Well, I
Animals.
started all of this searching for my own health when I had chronic degenerative conditions that were genetically based way back when I was in my 20s. And when it worked for me, there was this little light bulb that went off saying, why wouldn't this work for our own family pets or some of my clients' own pets? And lo and behold, it did. So it started in my career as things for humans that I applied for 20, 25 years for animals. And now it's going vice versa, because I can't tell you, I can't even come near telling you how many of our clients have gotten better with their own conditions from what they've learned and what they've experienced from their own pets. So,
in the
you know,
film.
it's an interchange.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really fascinating that the, what was his name? Mulligan?
Mulligan's mom.
Yeah.
You got it.
I still eat bacon, but
Right.
you know, she's improved her diet.
Yeah. Health is health, you know, and it's just, they have 4 legs, we have 2 and 2 danglers. It's not much difference. You know, we're biological creatures, and if we abide by the rules of nature, and especially don't suppress nature with toxic chemicals, we have a much better chance at establishing health.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Just a quick reminder that if anyone has questions, you can drop them into there's a little QA chat. So, and we will get to questions towards the end of the conversation. Cindy, I'm curious to know, this is a 2-part question. One, how long did it take you to make the film? And I know that you probably followed many more dogs and animals than what are featured in the film. Was it really hard to narrow down which stories made it into the film, or was it obvious?
Well, we filmed for about 3 years, and there were so many good stories, but there were some stories that were more conventional. I mean, this is a conventional clinic that does alternative medicine. Is that correct, Marty? Would you say that? It's you know,
Or an alternative clinic that does conventional medicine.
Okay, it's that too. So,
Yeah.
you know, there's plenty of stories that came in, and they were doing supplements and things like that, but it was more of a conventional story. So we were trying to look for what was different about the clinic. So over a period of 3 years, we filmed over 100 dogs, I'm sure. And we had great stories. And a lot of those stories you'll see in the educational series. but we kind of were trying to find stories that we really had beginning to end. And that's not always easy, because these dogs were coming in and out, and you know, you had to get a film crew from New York or grab somebody that, you know, was local to come film it. It was a huge challenge. I think it was probably the hardest filming I've ever had to do, because it was just constant, and you had to just keep filming because there were so many dogs, and you just tried to get them all. But you know, and then some people would come in, and you know, maybe you would never see them again. So it might have been a really interesting story, and they went off and did what they said, and then the dog got better, and it's not on film. So it's a challenge.
Yeah.
Also, the clinic sees patients from all over the United States every single day. So it's hard for the film crew to follow. You know, we have animals from California, from Santa Fe. I mean, we do. It's Oregon. We took a look at about at least 50% of the states of the United States are in our waiting room every month. At least 50%. So it would be hard for the film crew to all of a sudden, if you know, we see a dog from Tennessee, we start them on a program, we monitor them tremendously by telephone and by internet, but it's very hard for the film crew when this dog is doing great 4 weeks later to all of a sudden
Right.
pack up and go to Tennessee.
Yeah.
Lots of different challenges. Well, I was very touched by all the stories in the film, and I think it was probably obvious that you had to include was it
Waffles.
Yeah, waffles. What a touching story. I mean, I can't imagine that there's anybody out there that didn't cry. I cried at the beginning, at the middle, at the end of the waffle story. And I loved seeing, I love that you incorporated at the end showing her new dog, because it's really the cycle of life. And, as
Correct.
a dog, we're all very familiar with that. Dr. Marty, you mentioned you had an epiphany when healing your own immune system, and that was the root of the work that you do. And you had this epiphany that it can also work for animals. So I'm curious if you could speak just a little bit about how your approach to total health has evolved over time since you first had that epiphany. And also, you incorporate so many, again, this is like a 2 or 3 part question, but you incorporate so many different modalities: homeopathy, acupuncture, nutrition, cryotherapy. So did you have mentors? How did you, did you just have an insatiable curiosity for all these things? How did you, how did you bring that all together?
Yeah, and I didn't really have mentors. I was probably the first, especially in my profession, at the level that I did come out. I didn't come out of Cornell Veterinary School and say, oh, I think I'm going to get into holistic medicine. It didn't exist. So there were some mentors in the human field that I went to their references, but it's very interesting how it evolved is, it's the pendulum and the momentum of the pendulum. I was over here, graduated Cornell in the initial phases. I was number 2 in my class. I was a gung-ho veterinarian. And then all of a sudden I realized that what I was doing for my own health was wrong. So the pendulum, the weight of the pendulum put me all the way over here. And suddenly all of medicine was bad. And it was only alternatives that was good. And then I saw that didn't work. So if I didn't take a cancer patient that was suffering and do surgery, that patient was going to die. And then over the years, the pendulum became very balanced. So right now, we are truly in the age of integrative medicine, where it's not this here or this here, and you have to choose one or the other. Mm-hmm. It's a combination of both. And there is no one magic bullet for any pet. If you came to me and said, oh my God, would you give me some advice in getting healthy? I could say, you could go on a fast, you could change your diet, you could start eating more vegetables, you could exercise. There are so many different ways. And I've learned over the years that there are many different ways to make any patient better. Some integrative veterinarians in Oregon may take the same exact kind of patient and put them on a totally different program than I would, and that patient would get better. So it's a broad concept. Alternative medicine, the field of alternative medicine is as big and as complex as the field of conventional medicine. It's not just, take some vitamin C, or there's 2 or 3 supplements you should take. So it's a huge field that needs to be investigated scientifically at the level of the university.
Which leads me, thank you. I love that pendulum analogy, and I really appreciate that you have a truly integrated approach, because there are strengths in both modalities. And when this is my personal philosophy, but when you bring them together, it's so much stronger than just one or the other.
Exactly.
And this leads me to my second question for you. When you were speaking to the veterinary students at Cornell, you mentioned that the number one criticism of your work is that you haven't published. You you haven't published. And so you mentioned also that your hope is that you and other you could work with yourself and other integrative veterinarians could have an opportunity to work in conjunction with an organization like Cornell to get some science-based evidence. Are you working towards that? Do you see that happening? Are these organizations more open to that sort of thing? Where do you see that?
Yes, the organizations and the schools are definitely more open. The first thing I did was become certified in acupuncture in 1975 and got condemned. Literally got ridiculed and condemned. And now probably 65% of the veterinary schools in one way or another embrace acupuncture. The 2 weeks before I lectured at Cornell, and my license was threatened in 1979 for treating arthritic dogs with glucosamine sulfate because I wasn't using standardized therapy. And now I can't tell you how much glucosamine sulfate supplements are sold in veterinary medicine. 2 weeks before I lectured at Cornell, the study came out in the journals on the relief of pain and inflammation in arthritic dogs with CBD oil. And the study was done by Cornell. So it's just, it's happening right now where the universities are in the process of accepting what I've been spouting for 40 years.
Interesting. Shall we go ahead and play one of the clips that we have, Cindy? Or
Yeah,
Dr.
I think that first clip is exactly what we're talking about right now.
Yeah. Why don't we play that clip?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Routine exam, 2 injections, migraine.
Let me know and I'll call her because she needs to know whether to come in tomorrow or not.
Separate out.
It's taken a lot of training, a lot of trial and error, a lot of fear. But now this clinic is a working instrument. We have animals coming in every day from all over the United States. We do everything we can for that pet. But I will not harm an animal to prove something works. All the doctors at Smith Ridge share my philosophy. They know how to unravel very complicated cases. We are not anti-medication. We're not anti-vaccination. We are pro-sanity.
Thank you. I need to start my video again. That was perfect timing. Okay, let's see. I'm starting my video here. Cindy, I really appreciated your day in the life approach to this film. It was I felt like I was right there with you. It was a very intimate approach to telling the story. Did you have that in mind when you first started shooting, or was that something that evolved as you started getting more footage and as you started fleshing the project out a little bit more?
Well, we were there all the time. They even gave us, this is what is so important for a documentary filmmaker is they gave us a key to their clinic because we had to go in early and set up a lot of times. And so to have the access, we tried to film in a regular, very mainstream, big hospital, conventional vet clinic. And they were like, yeah, come see our clinic. And then as soon as we said, okay, well, we're going to have to be there several days with the crew of, you have people in the back room and 5-6 people at least. And it was like, no, you can't do that. And Marty and these doctors, Dr. Shane, Dr. Ruskin, Dr. Jenna, they were so excited that we were going to talk about this kind of medicine that they were like, yeah, bring it on. And, we were very invasive, but we tried to be a fly on the wall. And And one of the things, and my husband said this, it was interesting because, you know, he's seen me schlep to the vet a million times, not a million times, but, you know, whenever I've had a dog that was sick. And he said, you know, I've never really understood what it was like at a vet clinic. And it is intense. I mean, we would all be exhausted and say, I don't know how they do it. Because this clinic gets one case after the next. That is not just like, well, puppy visit, which some of them are, but they get these intense, complicated cases where the files do come in and they're like, you know, this thick. And they have to read those files and they have to try to then decipher what's gone on and maybe what could we do better. And so you saw it over and over again, and you saw these people grateful. And so it was very important to me to sort of explain that, because this is another, we didn't get this into the film and I wanted to, that veterinarians are one of the highest rates of suicide in our nation, of any profession. Because, you know, you hear dentist or something, but veterinarians are right up there at the top. And I understood why, because you have serious cases, you have patients who can't tell you what's wrong, you have stressed out owners, and you have most vets, I'm sorry, they have a very small toolbox that they've been taught, and they have medications that they can use. But what makes this clinic different, and there's a hope factor there, is that they have a much bigger toolbox because they start with a lot of natural things as well, and they build up the health of the animal before they maybe tackle the big issue, instead of just tackling the big issue and hoping for the best. And so I'm glad that you saw that, because that was very important to me to sort of really show what it's like in a vet clinic. And even then, I don't think I could convey the amount of stress that goes on in a day in a vet clinic.
Yeah. Well, it is a very, it really comes across that you were welcomed there and you were given unlimited, or maybe not unlimited, but
It was pretty limited.
You were given
It was-
great access. And that really comes through in the film, because it has a very intimate feel to it and you feel like you're right there. And also by the end of it, I felt like these people had become familiar to me, you know, and the animals as well. So thank you for that. And also, Cindy, I appreciated that you highlighted the controversy around Dr. Marty's work. I think that makes it a stronger film. And it was incredibly fortuitous that you had Dr. Shane to interview, because that was an interesting arc for someone who was, you know, working in a conventional, or came from a conventional perspective, conventional treatment, conventional veterinary perspective. That was a really nice addition. One of the questions that's come in is, did you ever consider interviewing a skeptical conventional vet to hear other criticisms out there? So it's a two-part question, because that's a question that's been dropped into the chat. And then my question is, when you are making a film like this, what's your approach? I mean, we see it in this film, but I just wonder, what do you think about including in a film like this when there is controversy and that's part of the story?
Well, I tried very hard to get another side. I tried the skeptics. I tried even seeing the guy that had written the blog. I mean, we talked on the phone a lot. I tried going down to vaccine experts. We had lined up a huge shoot at Kansas State with a lot of vaccine researchers, experts, who were very happy to talk to me. And then the university suddenly closed it down 2 days before the shoot. It cost me a lot of money because we had booked planes and cars and hotels. You know, it was interesting to me because I want to talk about titers and, you know, how are vaccines made and what are in them, and, you know, very scientific. I wasn't looking to scare anybody. I was, you know, and the scientists wanted to talk to me, but the university did not want me to talk about that. And the American Veterinary Medical Association wouldn't talk to me when I said I wanted to talk about titers and, you know, your vaccine schedule and things like that. I mean, for no reason whatsoever. You know, it upsets me that it's not a conversation we can have. You know, we are not anti-vaccine. My kids are all vaccinated, but no one wants to really talk about anything about them, or, you know, it really, let's put it this way. I tried over and over to get the other side. And, you know, I think that it's a hard argument to have, because basically this works. And I think when it really gets down to it, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the people I talked to, they would want to talk until they heard I wanted to maybe discuss these other things. And then they were like, no, we're not going to do it.
They're
They
staring
wouldn't
away.
answer my call ever again. It was crazy.
That's too bad. They were
It's so
staring
angry, you know.
Yeah, they were staring away from controversy, you know?
Well, they didn't want to answer any hard questions.
Yeah, yeah. In talking about Dr. Shane, and just, I felt like I developed relationships with people at the clinic, not just you, Dr. Marty, but the other veterinarians as well. Jason, would you cue up that clip that we have? And I think it's Dr. Shane who talks about her boyfriend.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Routine exam, 2 injections,
Oh, we can't hear it.
You are handsome. I can't believe what you went
He's my
through,
boyfriend. I will fight you for him.
I might take this one then. This one's pretty cute. Oh. You good with them?
Yeah, I think so. We'll find out. If I'm not, it'll be pretty obvious. I don't know if I ever told you why I refer to Dozer as my boyfriend. A couple of Valentines ago, after he wound up needing a few surgeries to have mast cell tumors removed, which we're going to try to avoid moving forward because we're going to be doing cryo instead. But having said that, he became my boyfriend because on Valentine's Day, he gave me, he did it, I'm sure his owners had nothing to do with it, 3 dozen roses and an autographed picture of himself. And it was the best Valentine's Day present that I've ever gotten from any man. I think it probably just doesn't get any better than that.
And he wags his tail right on cue, right?
Oh, yeah.
So sweet. Thank you. That was such a cute clip. And that clip, she talks about cryotherapy. It's interesting to hear that Dozer, he obviously had followed her from the previous clinic. This is a question that was dropped into the chat by Jacqueline Frank. And it was something I was going to ask as well, is what is the backstory of cryotherapy? And, you know, what prompted you to try it? And why was it considered wacky or outside of conventional treatment?
It dates back to the 1800s. I think it started in Germany. Why is this little box here? And it's been used for centuries. And there are scientific papers on it. It's called cryoimmunology, on the immune supportive effects following cryosurgery. And what happened was, when veterinary medicine became interested in it, veterinarians were freezing tumors, and they weren't dying. They were growing back. And it was my brother, who is also a veterinarian, that was my partner, especially in the 70s and the 80s, who took it upon himself to do a lot of research. And he found that when you freeze a tumor and then it defrosts, the cells are damaged and they'll regrow. But if you freeze a tumor, let it defrost, and then suddenly freeze it again, that's when you kill the cell. So it was my brother that actually showed the efficacy of cryosurgery. And I would say probably 10, 12% of all the veterinarians in the United States perform cryosurgery, but unfortunately, for small little skin tumors, you're not going to see cryosurgery like you saw in the film.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Also, I just want to say that a lot of women do cryosurgery. You know, if you have a spot on your face and your dermatologist puts that liquid nitrogen on there, they spray it. That's cryosurgery, right, Marty? And that's basically,
Yeah, it is cryosurgery.
that's cryosurgery.
It's controlled frostbite. I
Make
mean,
that
it's
further.
just, it's, you know, like I said in there, it's like, you know, there's 5 different advantages to cryosurgery over conventional surgery. And it's like having 5 slices of cake and eat it too. And I just don't know why it hasn't. I still get tremendously criticized and ridiculed for even suggesting cryosurgery for a patient by conventional surgeons. And it's a shame. It's just because they don't know. They need to be educated, which is where I'm going to spend the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. One thing I was curious about, you know, so many dogs suffer from separation anxiety, and certainly, you know, there's often a PTSD component or an emotional component, but it's something that so many pets struggle with. Have you had some success in treating certain cases of separation anxiety with whole body wellness?
Well, I mean, here's where science comes into play. And this will be included in the educational series because the expert on behavioral issues, especially associated with thyroid dysfunction or thyroid disease, is Dr. Jean Dodds, and Cindy did a lot of filming with her. So almost every type of behavioral issue has a very good chance to be linked to thyroid disease. It's called autoimmune thyroiditis. And so much autoimmune thyroiditis is due to vaccination, especially inappropriate or over-vaccination. So we have taken many dogs with horrible behavior issues, did full thyroid testing, found out their thyroids were not functioning well, addressed the thyroid even medically, and their behavioral issues got better. So why is a holistic veterinarian telling you this when this is scientific, real medicine that is taught in veterinary schools but is forgotten by the clinical years?
That's fascinating. Thank you to everyone that has dropped questions in. Just a reminder that if you have a question that you'd like to ask either Cindy or Dr. Marty, please drop it into the QA, and I'm going to start going through these questions. Marianne Bennett asks, any comments in general about transitional cell carcinoma?
Yes, it's very common. It's a cancer almost exclusively of the bladder or the urogenital system. And you got to realize that the urinary bladder's function is a storage unit. It doesn't make urine, it doesn't pass urine. So it's very sensitive. And when we don't use proper health care on patients, feed them improperly, which leads to a lot of buildup of waste products, excessive over normal, and then we start to drug them. The body and the liver have to get rid of these poisons and toxins. They get filtered through the kidney, and where do they sit? They sit in the bladder until that door, maybe 4, 6, 7 hours. And a lot of these drugs are mutagenic. They can mutate normal cells. So if you have normal lining cells of the bladder and you expose them to constant chemicals or waste products, toxic waste products, then it's going to convert to a cancer. So we're all, we're wondering, where does cancer come from? It's normal cells that go haywire because the immune system is not working properly. So a lot of transitional cell carcinomas have to be first removed surgically, but that's not going to cure it. Then you have to work on the health and the immune system of the patient. And we've been very successful with this cancer type at Smith Ridge over the years.
Thank you. And I'm going to let that lead me into another question by Deborah Bolt. Dr. Marty, could you talk more about the dramatic increase in canine cancer and the connection you make with what most dogs get fed? Could you also give us a little bit of information about what a good dog diet should look like?
Great question. Sums up my life's work. I graduated Cornell in 1973, and approximately 1 to 10 dogs got cancer. It was always a disease of the old. So if we saw a young dog with a lump, we eliminated the possibility of cancer based solely on age. Recent statistics show that 1 out of every 1.61 dogs in the United States now get cancer, and it's become very common in the young dog too. So it's astoundingly upsetting that I've witnessed the incidence of cancer in my career at least quadruple. One of our God's gifts to veterinary medicine is a doctor named Greg Ogilvy. He was the head of internal medicine and oncology at Colorado State University for many years. He moved on to a huge hospital facility in San Diego. He proved scientifically that the byproducts of grain and cereal metabolism in the canine body, which is glucose and lactate, supply the growth of cancer cells. What is the predominant ingredient in some of the biggest selling dog foods in the history of this planet? Cereal and corn. So he proved scientifically that these substrates feed cancer cells. So yes, diet has a huge play, not so much maybe in the development, but the maintaining of a cancer cell once it starts. There are other factors, tremendous factors, that cause the immune suppression in the first place. So great question, and I hope that answers it.
Yeah, thank you. And while we're on the subject of diet, there has been a rise in DCM, dilated cardiomyopathy.
Yes.
And some connection to grain-free diets. Is that something you've seen in your clinic? And tell us what you...
No, we haven't, because most of my clinic is either on raw diet or mostly exclusively, predominantly meat diets. Here's the scoop with that. I think it's a bunch of bull. There is nothing in grains that supports healthy heart function in a carnivorous animal like a dog or a cat. These grain-free diets have very poor sources of meat protein. That's one of the theories. One of the other theories is that the things that they use to replace the grains, like peas and potatoes, contain what are called lectins, which block the absorption and utilization of taurine across the intestine.
Oh, okay.
And then there is a mold theory that's what is used to replace the grains have a certain kind of aflatoxin mold that damages the heart. And the fourth theory that I'm really researching now is that we all know about the dangers of glyphosate and Roundup. I mean, there are lawsuits being won all over the place. There is medical science that glyphosate actually can damage heart muscle and heart function. And glyphosate and corn are almost the same word. And so many of our commercial pet foods are corn-based. And when they took them out to make grain-free, they replaced them with things like potatoes and non-organically grown potatoes, and peas and lentils are also very, very high in glyphosate. And if you look at the Institute of Responsible Citizens, something like that, they show that glyphosate urine concentrations in dogs is 30 times higher than in humans.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a four-way thing, but there, the simple answer, there is nothing in grains that nature put in there to support the heart health in dogs. So thinking that if you add grains back into your dog or cat's food, you're going to make their heart stronger is a bunch of bull.
Did you say it was 30% higher glyphosate in pets?
30 times.
30 times.
30 times.
Wow, that's significant.
Yeah, and that's published scientific data.
Oh, very interesting. Thank you. This is a question from Tina Osagoran. I think I'm butchering your last name. Do forgive me, Tina. It's interesting that Cornell invited you to speak when you're promoting things they don't teach. Are you working with institutions like Cornell to change their curriculum to include these ideas?
Cindy, you could answer the first part of that.
Well, it was the Alternative Medicine Club that invited him. It's a club at Cornell made up of quite a few students, and they do like the alternative, or they were studying that there are alternative things that aren't being taught, and they very much want it to be taught. And it was interesting to see the students that came, because we filled this auditorium, and it was only, I don't know, 35, 40 minutes that he did the speech. And then a lot of people had to go to class, and half the audience stayed for another hour to ask questions to Marty. And it was very clear that these kids were very fascinated. They wanted more of this, and that it's kind of the old guard, I think, in a lot of these universities. LSU has started a program of alternative medicine, and I think it's happening in spots around the country. But certainly with this film, that's one of my goals, is I would like more and more universities to teach it, because this isn't something you just kind of pick up, from a book and then go in and use it in your clinic. I think Marty can attest to the fact that you really need to study it. You need to maybe go and shadow other doctors that do it. Because it's a lot to learn, and it's not just a weekend course or something to learn it. So it should be taught in universities.
Well, one thing that's very interesting, one of the best scenes in the documentary, I'm sure you'll agree, is the interchange between me and Dr. Rick Palmquist, who was the veterinarian that tried to get my license suspended. And we were talking, and he's the one that actually fainted when I made a paralyzed dog walk. Last October, Cornell University does an annual conference for veterinarians. It's 3 or 4 days long every October up at the main school of Cornell. And he was asked to lecture on 3 different topics in alternative medicine. There were 7 to 8 doctors or specialists lecturing at any given moment for 3 or 4 days. And he was voted the most popular of all the lecturers over the 4-day seminar at Cornell. So yes, there is tremendous embracing now of alternative therapies at the level of the veterinary school.
Thank you. That is...
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. This last question is related more to an individual dog. I'm going to go ahead and share it, and Dr. Marty, you can choose whether or not you want to answer it. This is from Donna Walter. I just lost an 11-year-old Border Collie mix to IMHA, tried blood transfusions and some super steroid drug, but could not save her. I worry my special diet might have been a factor. Grain-free, dehydrated food, high quality with added fresh meat. Was that a bad thing?
I don't think that was a bad thing. This is immune-mediated hemolytic anemia. My question, if she could answer it, is because there is a huge link on these autoimmune diseases being linked directly as a sequela to vaccinations. And it doesn't mean that you give the vaccine and 3 days later it happens. It could happen 6 weeks later. It could happen 3 months later, or the process could, in the immune system, could be instigated by the components of these vaccines that are not necessary when a dog is 8 or 9 years old. It's like, when was your last polio shot? And then something in the environment triggers it. I don't think it's related to the diet.
And what was the vaccine that you mentioned? What was the
Any vaccine.
Any vaccine.
Any vaccine.
Okay.
And that kind of condition is one of what we call the jet plane crashes. You could have a perfectly healthy 2-year-old dog, all of a sudden, boom, they get hit by this autoimmune disease. Something triggers it in. I don't think it's dietary related. It's autoimmune in nature. And once again, there's a huge, and you can look this up, it's in the scientific literature. This is a documented adverse reactions to the process of vaccinations, and especially repetitive vaccinations.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Let's see, this message is blocking. And then we have a message from Maria Gale. Can pulmonary hypertension in dogs be treated with complementary medicine? I think she means integrative medicine.
Any disease can be treated with integrative medicine. And I don't care what the disease is. Disease occurs when the immune system is not functioning properly, and when the body starts to get built up with toxins from improper diet, from drugs, environmental. And, like I always say, how do you heal a cut? The man, I feel, has become maybe 12, 14, 16% conscious of the physical universe around him or her. Nature is 100% conscious. So when nature starts to create symptoms, there are reasons for it. So as technologically advanced as man has become, my definition of science in the field of medicine is man trying to figure out what nature already created. Man can't create something that can heal a cut. Nature did. So any disease, you don't have any cells in your body that you had over 7, 8 years ago. Maybe just eggs in females, if they're still under the age of 45 or 50. So any cell, given enough time and support, can replicate itself. So I don't care if it's in the heart, if it's in the lungs, if it's in the bone, if it's in the bladder. So if you get the body in the right direction of healing, and you allow disease cells to be broken down, eliminated by the body, and replaced with a normal cell, almost any condition has the potential to be healed. Not that it's going to heal every single case.
Thank you. And we have one last attendee question, and then I have a follow-up question.
Oh, I have one more thing to that is vital, 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 vital.
Yes.
The best thing that anybody could do that has a problem with their pet, regardless of where they live, is the American Holistic Veterinary Medical Association, the AHVMA.org, has a listing of all the integrative veterinarians around the country, state by state, city by city, and the modalities that veterinarian practices. You shouldn't do this on your own. You shouldn't do this on Google. You should, especially if your pet is seriously ill, find an integratively trained veterinarian that you could work in conjunction with. Don't try to contact me by internet so I could give you advice over a computer.
And I'm going to follow that up with, since we're in Santa Fe, I work with, and I'm guessing many of the people on here are from Santa Fe. If you've got a dog and you're looking for an integrative vet in this area, Dr. Holly Johnson, who practices in Taos.
Yep, I know her.
Yeah, is a wonderful veterinarian. Yep. I actually met her on the boot on the boot bench at the boot doctor getting our ski boots fit, and I looked over and she was wearing a sweater that was completely covered in animal hair, and I knew I liked it right away. And she's been my veterinarian, my dog's veterinarian, for many years. She's great. So anybody locally is looking for somebody.
I had to roll my shirt before I got on the thing. You know, it's full of cat hair too.
Yeah.
And the truth is, you didn't have to roll it.
Yeah, you're among friends here.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Bad.
From an anonymous attendee, what do you say to people who say that it's very hard to balance, in quotes, a raw diet? I've been afraid to go that way because of fears over missing key nutrients.
That's where you should really work with a good integrative veterinarian, because what works for one animal won't work for another. Don't look for the one ideal diet for all dogs. You know, when we work with any patient, we see them, examine them, we study their records, and we take blood samples, and then we alter their diet or construct a diet and supplementation based on that individual, not based on something we're researching on Google. So,
yeah,
you know, working with Holly, if they're local, is it's the greatest thing you could do. And not all dogs will acclimate to raw.
Great, thank you for that. I know that's a question a lot of people have. We're getting close to the end here, but I'm just curious to know, Dr. Marty, obviously you see the future of veterinary medicine as holistic and conventional medicine becoming more merged. But what do you see as coming down the pike? What are new modalities and new opportunities and new things coming in the future in holistic veterinary care? What kind of technologies or knowledge or
probably the biggest thing in the future of medicine is to embrace the past. Acupuncture, herbs, good nutrition. They've been on this planet a real long time. But, you know, as impressed as I am in technological science, and I'm really impressed by it, you know, some of these forms of new radiation are just really impressive. One of the treatments you saw in the documentary, the MagnaWave, pulsed electromagnetic frequency. It was, you know, originally created by Tesla, comes out of the NASA space program. And it is, to me, it's the future of all medicine. I learned about it from the lady that did this documentary. Her name is Cindy Meal. And I mean, it's astounding technology, and it's starting to be embraced by conventional medicine. It doesn't care what the diagnosis is. It doesn't care about this or that. It puts the proper pulsed electromagnetic frequency wave into the body, and areas of disease suddenly become aligned. One of the problems they have, and there's so much, tons and tons of scientific documentation in the NIH studies and PubMed on the efficacy in almost every disease for pulsed electromagnetic frequency, but they can't explain how it works so quickly.
Right.
So these, you know, the future for me is going to be very exciting because of the years of intense struggle, the decades of struggle, and finally the witnessing, especially with this film coming out and how it's turning eyes all over the place. I mean, I've had conventional veterinarians watch this film and call me and say, you know, double thumbs up. It was just, it really showed the combination of both modalities. So to me, the future is going to be one of excitement. But we have to start embracing nature. And the two associates that I've had that have made me so successful and my clinic so successful with thousands of terminally ill animals, those two associates are called nature and common sense. And every veterinarian has the ability to work with those two associates.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much. And in closing, is there anything else, either Cindy or Dr. Marty, that you'd like to add or share?
I really would love to share, or hope that people will share this film. And if you go to dogdocthefilm.com, It shows you all the ways you can see it. So you could share it with friends or just send them that link. And there's a lot of ways to watch this film. It's playing virtually in theaters. It's playing on Amazon and iTunes and other platforms and by the fall. And we have DVDs coming out soon. So there's a lot of ways to see this film. We're going to have a very fancy DVD with the extras, some of the extras that you saw tonight. Attached to that. That'll be coming out in the fall, and it's a great Christmas gift. So we really, the main reason for making this film is to spread the word, because I just couldn't stand seeing people with sick. I would send so many people to this clinic, you know, and they would be at their wits' end, and their dogs were very sick, like mine had been, and they got turned around. And I would always get people calling and going, "Oh my God, how did I not know about these people? My dog is so great." So I just want dogs to get better. I want dogs to be healthy. And I think if people will get on this path, they would be amazed at the difference in their dog. I always say dogs shouldn't smell. They should feel silky and soft and be happy and have energy. And that's the way I want to see all dogs. And so
cats.
And cats.
And cats.
I have a cat. You know, he finally started eating raw. It took forever to get him to do it. But anyway, so just please share this film. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, dogdocthefilm.com.
Okay, and if we want to get on your mailing list so that we can be notified when you have the additional releases and information, where do we go to get on your mailing list?
You can, same place, go to dogdocthefilm.com, and I think something will pop up, and you can it's very simple. We have made it easy peasy. Just sign up and you'll get notices when things are happening, or follow the Facebook. We're pretty active on our Facebook, and you get a lot of great information, medical information, all kinds of information. So
great. I just wanted to make sure everyone had that information. It was really clear. Thank you all so much for joining us here tonight. Cindy and Dr. Marty, it's really been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for making this wonderful film and spreading the word. And Dr. Marty, you really found the perfect evangelist to help spread the word.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, what a great partnership. So
we didn't find her, we created her.
And thank you, Jane. We appreciate what you're doing too. You're in this fight too with helping animals, and we really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. That's really kind of you to say. I appreciate that. Jason, we have one last clip that we haven't shown yet. In closing, do you want to go ahead and key that last clip up? And thank you all again, and have a lovely evening and happy Friday.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good night. Bye. See you tomorrow. Have a good night.
It's nice when it slows down a little bit and we have time to actually give them the one-on-one attention. It really changes the whole experience for them, being in the hospital. It's a lonely place to be. We're old friends, right, Joe? He's a good boy.
Food allergy panel, SNAP 9225. This is Rosie.
Hi, Rosie.
As a child, I had very bad arthritis in my knees, and from 8 to almost 17 years old, I was pretty much on crutches and in braces, and I had major knee surgeries. I was in a hospital, and back then, when I was a kid, the surgeries I had on my knees, they kept me there 9-10 days at a time, and my mom was working full time, and so I was there. She'd come in maybe an hour or two at night. I learned what a hospital is like. They're very lonely, and they're very scary, because, animals are like children. And I was 9, my first surgery, so I think that I imposed that thought on them, whether they're thinking it or not, and I try to respond to it and make them not feel that way. You know what I mean? So I hopefully it's a benefit. There's reasons for everything. Maybe that was the reason it happened.
You're fine.
So good. Oh, get under there. and this one.